Hi, this is Misha, and this video is on a very last-ditch Arisaka, often called a rope hole. We're going to get to that in just a split second, but I wanted to revisit a couple of models we've seen in our first Japanese video, which is on the Type 99 series. If you haven't checked that out, please do so. This is a Series 10 Nagoya, produced in probably late 44, maybe early 45. This one has typical late war features, such as an unprotected front sight. It does not have a provision for a cleaning rod. It has very roughly welded barrel bands. It has a half-length upper handguard. As you can see, the barrel has pretty noticeable lathe marks on it. And it uses a three-piece stock instead of the earlier two. You can hear on this one, this is a separate piece. It's not a duffel cut or anything. This was a separate piece of wood, whereas on an earlier gun, this whole piece would stretch all the way back to here. This one, it does have its chrysanthemum here. Being a late war, this is sometimes called a Type B receiver. It does not have the markings for year Type 99. It just has the royal chrysanthemum. In front of it, we have the simplified rear sight, which is a fixed peep. This one still has the rail on the receiver for a dust cover. It has a simplified bolt. The bolt body itself is a much rougher machined. The bolt handle is a cylindrical knob which is welded on. And the safety here is very rough weld. Now these were always welded even with the early ones, but they were shaved down smooth and then checkered. Whereas in these late ones they just left the weld to be the grip for the safety. The trigger guard on this one is still dished in. You probably cannot see it on the camera, but you can just take my word for it. It's dished in inside here, and it has grooves in the back to allow the finger to go around the trigger. We have a wooden butt plate held on with 3 nails. And finally, the rear sling swivel is held on with 1 screw. Early ones would have 2. So this is a relatively late Nagoya Series 10. I wanted to show you this to give you a comparison to the gun we're actually featuring in today's video that just came in the store. This is a so-called last-ditch rope hole for an extremely obvious reason. Instead of having a rear sling swivel, there's only a hole drilled in the stock, and they would tie a knot in a rope and pass it through the stock, and then tie the other end of the rope to the forward sling swivel. It was just one more cost savings measure. Now Nagoya would produce through Series 11 and get into Series 12 at the very end of the war. They would start Series 12 around August of 1945, and they would only get about 1,200 into that series. This isn't a 12, not that exciting, but it is an extremely late Series 11. It's in the 98,000 range. So this was one of the last 2,000-3,000 guns turned out by Nagoya. So we have this rope hole, as I said. Another last-ditch feature, this no longer has the groove in the receiver for the dust cover. So that means this receiver forging itself was made very late in the war. Now this one has a serial number. Some of the late war guns, especially from TJK, Tuki, Goji, Kokyo, whatever, Series 27, would not even have a serial number. This one still does. The sights are the same, that's all the same. Now the trigger guard is further simplified. It's a simple bent piece of steel. It's no longer dished in, straight. And another simplification that they did is actually the wooden butt plate is now held on with only 2 nails. So they were saving a nail with every gun, which if you consider you're producing, 200 to 300 guns a day, you're saving 200 or 300 nails. And when your nation is very strict for resources. Every bit counts. No one knows exact production dates on these last-ditch Japanese, but rope hulls such as this were extremely last-ditch. Definitely summer of 1945. As I said, TJK Series 27 would also do rope hulls. Nagoya would, and you'll see them in a few other places popping up randomly. But yeah, I just wanted to show there's not a whole lot of uniqueness, but Japanese collectors really go for these. And there are not many videos, if any, on YouTube showing this gun off. It is, I'm having to hold down the follower, sorry. Very rough gun, but still very functional. There's a lot of talk about if last ditches are safe to fire. People I respect that have been collecting Japanese guns for 20, 30, sometimes even 50 years say they are. And there's a lot on that. But I would definitely say, by and large, a last ditch is safe to fire. That said, I would not buy a rope hull wanting to fire it, because what makes this thing special is this stock and everything. I just wouldn't risk wear and tear. If you want to shoot a last ditch, just get a Series 10 or a Series 24 or something like that, and knock yourself out. It's probably as safe as any other 70-plus-year-old gun. Any old gun should be checked out by a gunsmith. But yeah, definitely a rare gun. Just for completeness' sake, I'll show you one more last ditch. This was also on our first video. And this out too. This is my Series 25 made by Kokura. This one's in the 89,000 range, and they quit producing at 92,000 after the bombs fell in August. It's interesting to note the different changes that different factories implemented. This one still has the plum-shaped bolt knob, even if it is a little rougher machine with this flat spot on the edge. The safety weld on this is actually even less dressed up than on the Nagoyas. But on the other hand, they still used a two screw rear sling swivel. So yeah, and the trigger guard is interesting. It's the flat piece of steel like on the rope hull, but it no longer has the cutouts for the fingers behind the trigger, so they've made that simplification. They also simplified the rear sight. The other ones, these corners are knocked down to make them perpendicular. Now it's just a straight box. So different factories implemented different changes at different times. But I just wanted to show you a couple of last-ditch guns and really show you off that rope hull, because I couldn't find any of the videos on YouTube. I thought it might be interesting for some. And if you have any questions, please post them below. As always, if you like the video, please click, please subscribe. We really appreciate each and every view we get. And please tune in soon for hopefully more interesting videos. This is Misha, and we'll catch you next time.